Hello and welcome to the official launch of Hell's Museum here at Haw Par Villa. I'm your host, Brendan Fernandez, and I'm excited to tell you about the launch of the first ever museum in the world dedicated to death and the afterlife. Now, we've been waiting a long time for this unique museum to open, longer than usual or expected due to obvious reasons, but the day is finally here. Now, in a few minutes, I'll be taking a tour of the museum with Joanne, who will be my guide. But first, let's go and look at what's happening to celebrate the launch right now. I'm told that we have representatives of some of the world's major religions who are here this evening to say a special prayer for the end of COVID-19 around the world. So right now, let's go to the VIP group gathered outside along with the team from Hell's Museum.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the courtyard of Hell's Museum for the official relaunch of Haw Par Villa, and of course, the highlight that we've been waiting for, the opening of Hell's Museum right behind us here. Now, before we enter the museum, ladies and gentlemen, there will be silent prayers offered by representatives from six of the world's major world religions. Okay? Now, could we have the religious leaders come forward, please, sir? Ladies and gentlemen, the prayers will be for better days ahead for Singapore and the rest of humanity. And of course, the one thing that we hold very close to our hearts, an early end to the pandemic. Representing Buddhism will be the Venerable Yo Guang. Representing Hinduism, Mr. Salvamutu Kumaran. Representing Sikhism, Mr. Ranjit Singh. Representing Zoroastrianism, Mr. Durak Darvala. Representing Taoism is Master Chung Wei Yi. And representing Islam is Ustaz Anwar Ashraf. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be observing silence as the prayers are offered. I'll now like to invite the Mexican ambassador, His Excellency Mr. Loaiza, and the director of Hell's Museum, Mr. Jaya, to step forward for the unveiling of the Hell's Museum logo. Your Excellency, Mr. Jaya.
To a new concept in hell.
Viva!
To a new concept in hell. A lot of hard work has gone into the curation and the creation of Hell's Museum, with many groups of people involved. Now, although the main perspectives shared here are Asian, there is one major exhibit that came from Mexico, developed and put up by the Mexican Association in Singapore, the Mexising. And that is the altar or the ofrenda that is usually put up during the Mexican Day of the Dead commemoration, held every second day of November. So, to show our gratitude for the Mexican Association's help in putting together the altar as a permanent exhibit in the museum, the director of the museum, Mr. Jaya, will be presenting a token of an appreciation to the Mexican ambassador, His Excellency, Mr. Loaiza.
Hell's Museum is being open today, but the concept and the ideas that we were working on travel across the world. And we had lecturers from Oxford University coming down and talking to us about what we were doing, and they were so excited about it. When they published a book on death and the afterlife, they have included a section on Hell's Museum, the soon-to-be open Hell's Museum. So we have Oxford writing about a museum in Singapore. And so, to thank you, the Mexican community, as the representative of the Mexican community, the first book that came off the press from Oxford goes to you, sir.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Mr. Director. Thank you so much, Madam. Everybody here, it's an enormous honor to be here. We are now have listened with our inner ears, with our soul, the prayers of the priests of the different religions of the world. And that is really the essence of what we are doing here. The fact that you have invited the ambassador of Mexico, which is in a country that if you will dig a hole, maybe you will arrive to Mexico, because we are almost opposites in the world. So it is fantastic that you have asked us, Mexican, to be part of the revamping of the Hopper Villa and of course of the opening of the Health Museum. Because these concepts are universal. There's a commonality, the prayers of course said it, our longing for divinity, our longing to understand ourselves, our longing to see what's beyond. And in that sense, you invited us in 2019, Madame Azul Aguilar, please an applause for her. She's the president of the Mexican Association Nexasin, and she's the one with the ladies of Mexico that did this fantastic ritual of having an altar for the dead. And the altar for the dead of Mexico is something that you can see now in the National Singapore Museum, where you see the syncretism on how our ancestors, in this case the Aztecs, and we're celebrating 700 years of the Aztec Empire, 500 years of the fall of the Aztec Empire, and 200 years also in 2021 of the Mexican independence. So it's very relevant for Mexico to be invited here in this historical moment. And it is precisely this syncretism of what we all believe for thousands of years, and in the case of Mexico, the Catholic religion, that we can see how in this beautiful Copper Villa, the founders did exactly that. As you say, through art, trying to show what are the principles that should lead our life, to show exactly with hell who we really are and how to live our lives. And it is through the spirit of this culture, of this art, that we are able to really reach those heights. And this is about art, this is about philosophy, this is about everyday lives. And it is beautiful that Singapore is having again the same thing that they had in the 30s, the 50s, after the Second World War, and now again in Hopper Villa and this fantastic Health Museum. So viva Hopper Villa! Viva! Viva Health Museum! Viva! Viva Singapur! Viva! Viva México! Viva! Viva todas las religiones del mundo!
Thank you, Your Excellency. The museum will be launched as soon as the ambassador hits the gong 3 times, but there is a little job for him to do. There is a belief that you make a wish and then you hit a gong and the wish will be heard and it will become true. So, Ambassador, we're going to ask you to make a wish and hit the gong 3 times, and we wish that the wish becomes true, but it will also declare the opening of Health's Museum. Sir, we are ready for your wish.
Thank you. So we wish an enormous success for Copper Villa and the Health Museum, that it would give consciousness to our lives, that in this time of pandemic we will be able to get out of it, and that we will be stronger, and that thanks to Copper Villa Health Museum, the Singaporeans and everybody that visits here will have a higher thought of themselves and humanity. Let's wish that.
Thank you, sir. Now we need to open the museum.
Ready?
Ready.
Yes.
And with that, Hell's Museum is officially open. So now the VIPs are making their way inside. It is my turn to take a tour. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Brendan. So I'm here to take you on a tour through hell.
Sounds great.
I'm really excited to give you this sneak peek tour of the three intriguing wonders that lies within the museum. Did you know that the Hell's Museum is the first museum in the world on the topic of death and afterlife?
So not just the first in Singapore, but first in the world.
That's right.
Okay. So of all the places in Singapore, why is it located within Haw Par Villa?
Now that's a good question, and that's because of the macabre or interesting, macabre fascination that Singaporeans have on one element in Haw Par Villa, and that's the 10 courts of hell. Now, Journeys, the heritage specialist that runs the park, they try to talk to people about reviving the rich legacy of this place, but all that people would talk about was how when they were little children, their parents would bring them to the 10 courts of hell, and there they'd be scared the living daylights out of them. So, well, we thought instead of, since we can't beat them, why not join them? So we decided to use this opportunity to share with the Singaporeans about their cultural roots, as well as, to take pride in their rich Asian culture.
Okay, so shall we go?
Let's go.
So Joanne, you mentioned Asian culture, right? But the 10 Courts of Hell is from Chinese culture, correct? So is the Hell's Museum about Chinese culture only or Asian culture generally?
That's the great thing about the Hell's Museum. It takes an interesting approach on the topic of death and the afterlife. It's not just about the Chinese perspective, but it explores how humans handles death, and also their views of the afterlife through time and through religion and culture. So here in the museum we have 6 interesting videos, all specially commissioned. 2 of them explains the rituals and practices that gives an interesting insight into their culture. So one is the Torajo from Sulawesi.
Okay.
So you can say that the museum takes a deep dive into comparing the major religions and interesting facts of what they say will happen to us when we die.
Right.
Now, Brendan, did you know that all the major religions in the world actually originated from Asia?
From Asia? No, I did not know that.
Yes, so here at the museum, we actually divide these religions into 2 categories based on the concept of time. So over here, we have the linear religions, which is that's Zoroastrianism, you have Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And over this side, you have the cyclical religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Sikhism.
Okay. And did you find any similarities across either side, or maybe even across both sides?
Yes, there is. Yeah, so one similar commonality across the religions is really the very human need to connect with one's loved ones even after they have departed from this world. So we have a gorgeous example here to show you. Usually, it's reflected in really colorful festivals and rituals and traditions. So let me show you.
Let's take a look, yeah.
This way.
Oh, wow. So what is it? What am I looking at, Joanne?
This is a Dia de Muertos, or Day of the Dead altar, and this was lovingly created by Mexa Sing, which is the Mexican Association of Singapore. So they created this altar specially for the museum, and as you can see from the altar, it is dedicated to Octavia Paz, the only Mexican Nobel Prize winning author.
Okay.
So the Dia de Muertos festival, it commemorates the loved ones that have passed on, and everything that's laid out on this altar bears special symbolism or significance to the loved ones or to the Mexican culture.
Okay. Joanne, is it just me, or does this bear a lot of resemblance to the 7th month, the Hungry Ghost festival altars that we have in Singapore?
You're right. Yeah, so the Dia de Muertos altar has a very similar concept to the 7th lunar month. Yeah, so you can see one example.
Right over here, right? So this is the 7th month altar. Okay. I find it so interesting that we have these two distinct cultures, geographically very distant, but they have very similar ideas about how to honor and remember their dead.
Yes, that's right. Well, let me just show you now another highlight of the museum. So let's proceed on.
Let's go. Oh wow, is this a HDB void deck?
Yes, it is.
Ah.
So we wanted to give you a visual representation of how the the remains of the date are handled here in Singapore. I mean, how many times have you walked past a yellow wig tent?
Yeah, all the time. Is there someone in that coffin though?
Well, let me introduce you to this person here.
Okay.
She's Mrs. Teo.
Uh-huh.
In fact, tablet here says that she's Mrs. Teo Yen Yok, and she passed away at the age of 82 in 1980. So the date was the 15th day of the first lunar month, between the time of 7 p.m. and 9 p.m.
Right.
Now, if you take a look over here, you can see all these are being laid out.
Yeah.
So here at the museum, you get to really take your time to look at all the different offerings laid out when one passes away.
Yeah. You know, now that I think about it, this is a very typical experience for those of us living in Singapore, right? I walk past these tents in the void deck all the time. But looking at everything here, I'm not really sure what the significance of each of these items are. I mean, most of us don't know unless, of course, we've actually had a loved one passed away, and we then might know. But yeah, I mean.
Well, yes. So that's what the Health Museum does. It gives you that unique opportunity and space to, just really look at some of these taboo ideas on death. I mean, especially for non-Chinese Singaporeans or even the Chinese Singaporeans themselves. I mean, these might be awkward questions they
yeah.
feel, to ask at
At an actual funeral, right? Yeah.
Now, Brendan, there's something I want to tell you.
What?
Behind this tent is Mrs. Teo's tomb.
So can we go?
Let's
go. Oh wow. Okay, I have to say, this is not something I expected to see.
Before you get too excited, let me tell you, Brendan, there isn't any real remains in the tomb.
Okay.
Well, Mrs. Teo is actually not a real person. She's an imagined character brought to us by the curators of Hell's Museum.
Okay, I kind of get it now. Like, we all have different experiences in life, right? But the one experience that we are all going to share eventually is death. And this seems like a very interesting way of reflecting on that.
Beautifully put. We thought it would be interesting and important to share with the Singaporeans how a traditional tombstone look like before, such graves disappear entirely in Singapore. So we worked with a local tombstone engraver to come up with this grave design from the 1980s that can be found in the Choa Chu Kang Cemetery. And so, well, we put a fair bit of research into that, and you can see the information on the gravestones here.
Great. So, Joanne, what's next?
Well, for folks at home, we'll see you in hell soon. Now, Brandon, you are in for a trip of a lifetime because you are going to hell.
Okay.
See you in a moment.
Okay, wow. Look at this place.
Well, so this is the infamous 10 courts of hell.
Wow, okay, amazing. So, those two guards, are they guards at the door? There's two figures?
All right, Brandon, if you see those two coming towards you, run.
Ah.
Yeah, but it will probably be too late by then, because those two gentlemen, well, they are the attendants of the netherworld, Oxhead and Horseface, and they are here to bring you to the netherworld for judgment and punishment.
Okay, so I guess we shouldn't keep them waiting then. Okay, oh, this is, wow, there's quite a lot going on. So these are different punishments, it looks like?
Yes, that's right.
Different judgments?
So you're already at court 2, that's where
Okay.
the first punishment is meted out.
All right, and then, so are they sequential, like court number 2, court number 3, like you have to go through them in
Yes,
sequence?
you have to go through sequentially, you can't miss any court.
Wow,
So,
that's pretty severe.
oh well, if you are innocent, you found innocent at one court, you skip the punishment for that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know.
Yeah. So over here, you see the souls actually looking down on earth,
Okay.
and from here they can see, what's happening on earth to their
Right,
families.
okay.
Yeah.
See. Okay.
So what's your thoughts on this one?
I mean, it's all really gory. Why is there a snake? Not sure.
I think those are poisonous.
I see.
snakes,
That
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. So what's happening here? Like, are there different judges in every court? What, assigning punishments for different crimes?
Well, that's right.
Okay.
At the first court, you go on trial, and then subsequently you move on to other courts at an interval of every 7 days, and that's where the judgment and punishment are being meted out. So if you look all around you, you can see the various types of punishment. So which punishment do you find the most interesting, Brandon?
Maybe this one, being boiled in a wok of oil. Well, thank you for being my guide this evening, Joanne.
It was my pleasure, and I'm glad you enjoyed your journey through hell. And Brandon, now you can tell people you've been to hell and back.
I most certainly will. Thanks, Joanne.
Welcome.
Now, for those of you watching at home, Hell's Museum is doing a giveaway over the next few days. The first 50 people dressed in Halloween costume to redeem their entrance tickets on the 29th, 30th, and 31st of October will receive a little token from Hell. Get your tickets online at www.hellsmuseum.sg. Links in the description. For those of you who didn't know, Haw Par Villa is having a relaunch weekend. Check out their PTix page for more details. For those of you watching the stream, go ahead and leave us a comment to tell us why you want to visit Hell's Museum, and be sure to tag on Instagram and Facebook. Give them a like and follow on their pages if you haven't already, and I'll see you in Hell.